Ah yes, very interesting. Mr. Crispin here once again, and welcome to my workshop. Now, I've been meaning to do a workshop tour video for a long time now. I thought about doing it last year. I was thinking of doing one in the spring. I thought about doing one in the summer, and finally today I've decided to take you around someone else's workshop. Now, on a recent video I discussed with a friend of mine, Richard Gibbon, about the use of various materials, and while I was there I had a look around his workshop. Well, here I am in Richard's workshop, and thank you, Richard, for having me. So this is Richard Gibbon.
Hi.
I've come to his workshop today to give you a little tour. Richard was one of my early engineering mentors from about 14 onwards, and following a little discussion we did on material choices, I've decided to film a little tour of his workshop, and Richard's kindly agreed to show us his equipment and his locomotive. So thank you, Richard. We'll have a look around. So this is Richard's lathe. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's out of a Royal Navy warship, 1941. It's very slow but very solid. I picked it up from a Polish gentleman in Manchester about 45 years ago, and it's been brilliant. It's perfect. It was overhauled by Elliott, and it's super. It's made by Denham in Halifax, which is really rather nice, and it's an all-geared head. But it's only got a top speed of 900, which is a bit of a problem when you're making small fittings. But nevertheless, I like it and it suits me.
Can I just stand back a sec? I'll get the whole thing in shot. So, well, tailstock. Fairly typical in lathe design, is it?
Yes, except that I've put a T-slotted top. I've put a table where the tool post was, so that I can have a rear tool post and do parting,
line boring, etc.
And line boring. It's very good to have a table here, which of course the Super 7, the Myford has, but the Denham doesn't. But it's been okay. It's been okay. I like it very much. I shan't be trying to replace this.
And I think you once told me you'd paid about £300 for it.
£300,
so
yes.
Proof you don't have to be a millionaire to get into machining.
No, and this has followed me all around the country from my apprenticeship onwards, really. So it's a great machine, and well, I know it well and I love it.
And about the right size for locomotive building. What have we got above the bed there?
Well, we can swing 18 inches.
Oh, a gap bed, is it?
So it's a gap bed, and we can swing 18 inches. It's a V bed, so we've got the guidance. It is worn, and I accept that, but with digital readout,
V bed,
any model engineer can do accurate work once you've got the slides fitted up. And I really would recommend that any model engineer should go for digital readout, but don't buy a cheap Chinese one, because it'll land you in trouble eventually.
Speaking from experience.
I'm afraid so. Yes, the one I bought for my milling machine came from China, and then I got a bill from Customs and Excise for 200 quid.
There we are.
So
yeah.
Go for something reputable.
So we are now looking at Richard's milling machine, and when this first came out, imported machines from overseas were a new idea, but this was one of the early ones, was it, Richard?
I think so, yes. I've had this 40 years, but again, it's okay, because I can do accurate work because of the digital readout. The one thing that I don't like is that when you come to release the head from the column, you lose all
yes.
your. But there's a lovely a design that somebody come up with a laser pointer and a target on the ceiling, and you can get back to the alignment.
Pretty close to where you were.
Yes, so it's okay. I mean, I don't do very precise work, as you'll see, but you know, I can swing big things.
You can do the job.
And it does the job.
So it's a bench top machine, 3 axes.
Yes.
And a rise and fall head.
Yes.
On a vertical column by means of a rack and pinion.
And 4 speeds. Well, more than 4 speeds, because we've got an intermediate pulley.
And a machine of that design is still pretty available today through Warco or whoever.
And it's essential that you have decent tooling. You can't, I mean, I know I've got a Jacob's chuck in here at the moment, but to hold an end mill properly, you need an auto-lock chuck.
Yeah, some kind of collet chuck.
Or a collet chuck.
So moving on down the line from the lathe milling machine, we're now at the shaping machine.
And this is essential for doing keyways and axles and wheels. And I've got a special hooked tool holder here so that I can poke through wheel castings. No, I don't do wheel castings. Poke through wheel centres to get keyways on shaft.
So this is an Elliott shaper.
It is, and it's a good solid little machine with a good speed range and automatic travel, so I can produce flat surfaces, I can produce right angle surfaces, and most of all, the thing I most use it for is for keyways, not keyways, for key slots
yeah.
in circular parts.
Yeah.
With a special
and
tool.
Complements a benchtop milling machine quite nicely.
Very nicely, yes.
So moving on from the shaper, we're now over to Richard's work area. This is his bench and pillar drill, and somebody's left a silly hat hanging on it.
I can't imagine. I think that must have just come throwing in from outside, but I can't imagine where that came from. A cheapo drilling machine, a bench. Everybody must have a bench that you and a vise that you can really hit hard. You know, you need to be able to really have everything solid. So there's all this mess around, but it's work in progress, and it's what I do, I suppose.
Well, speaking of what you do, let's reposition the camera and have a look at your current work in progress.
Very good.
So followers of my YouTube channel will be well aware what a locomotive in some of its pieces looks like. None of you have seen anything like a finished one, at least not on my channel, but here is an almost finished one, and this is what Richard's building at the moment. So you can tell us a bit about this, Richard.
Well, I went down to Tamworth and I saw this locomotive, and it's just so unusual. 1887, and it's called a Corpe Louvet, and it's made in Paris, and 6 of these went out to a coal mine in Spain, and I saw it running, and I thought, oh, I've got to have one. So of course there's no drawings, so a friend of mine did a CAD drawing from a photograph, and then I have sat and you know, gone to sleep many nights dreaming of what the bits should look like. So everything is drawn scruffy. This is not Martin Evans, this is not Model Engineer. It's all just drawn out scruffy, and I make no apology for this, because this engine is unique. There isn't another like this, and it's very nearly finished. I think we're about 2 months from steaming.
Now, you've built this a lot over the COVID lockdown, so it's been
Yes.
one of your quicker builds. How many, what are we talking, 2.5 years?
Yes, 2.5 years.
So not bad
but
at all.
But it's very unusual, because the cylinders are right up here, and someone's going to ask why, and it's because they were originally designed as tram engines for street running, so that the cylinders were up out of the way of the public. I don't really buy it, but it's rather like the mountain locomotives on the Snowdon Mountain Railway. It's a bit like that, but it's very unusual, and to me it's very attractive. So there won't be another like this, and this is called Saucy Joe Nut because it's an anagram of Can You Just, because people come through this door because they see I've got a workshop and they say, can you mend this tricycle? Can you mend this washing machine? Can you mend the most crazy things? Can you just? It all starts with can you just.
So you've rearranged that into
Saucy Joe Nut. So
Right.
there'll be nameplates for Saucy Joe Nut
Yeah.
when it comes. And the people who bring the can you just have no idea that I'm sending them up, but that's fine.
So there's the photo Richard was showing you of the finished one, so I look forward to seeing it complete sooner or later. Now Richard, you've built quite a few locomotives. Which number in the build line is this one?
This is number 17, believe it or not.
17 locomotives.
But not all as big as this.
Not
There have
all as
been
big as
things
this.
like Titch and Rob Roy when I was very young and at
Right.
school.
Well, what we're going to do for our final section here is have a look at the most recent 4 locomotives Richard's built. So let's have a look at what else is in this workshop and ask Richard a bit about them. So first up we have quite a piece here. Richard, talk to us about what this is.
Well, when I was a small child, we used to go on holiday to Degamway and Conway, and the new A55 bridge was being built across the estuary by William Arrell, and they built it with 2 Leeds-built steam cranes. And as a child of 7, I was mesmerised by these cranes. And I came home and tried to make Meccano models. And when I retired, I got the details and I made one of the steam cranes that put the bridge together over the River Conway.
So this is entirely scratch built.
It's just like you've seen with the book of Scribble.
So this is a one-off, you had to draw it all yourself.
Yes, I used a commercial test boiler. I used tubal canes.
Well, when you say commercial,
Sorry.
you mean...
Sorry, not commercial.
You don't mean
Can I correct
commercially
that?
produced.
I used a commercial design so that, which was a test boiler by Tubal Cain in
And
Model
that's,
Engineer.
that's not Tubal Cain of YouTube, that's Tubal Cain, the English model engineer who was of
Yes.
the previous century.
Yes, sorry.
So a lot
So-
of gear cutting on this.
Oh gosh, gear cutting. I bought all the gear cutters, and I just chawed away in my little 8x8x8 shed, making all the gears and everything.
And this is on the milling machine we just had a look at.
It is, and to my delight, I won several prizes with this crane, and a lot of people have coveted it. But it's a Booth crane made in Leeds. It's the Leeds type. It's based rather like the milling machine on a central column, which made it so strong. This is another obsession of mine. The Priestman brothers in Hull were brilliant engineers. They were Quakers, and they knew that lots of people had steam cranes with a single rope, and what people wanted was a crane that with a single rope could dig. And in order to dig, the bucket has to have several actions. And Priestman brothers designed this very clever mechanism whereby this bucket can open and close with just one operating rope, which made them a lot of money. But
So the operating rope is up here,
this is the operating rope,
which goes down to the engine.
and that makes the bucket open and close. And it really is so clever. And this mechanism here, you see that red thing? I didn't know how it worked. I had the general arrangement drawing from Beamish Museum, and I didn't know how it worked. And I made a model in cardboard with all these parts. And for goodness sake, I tried it, and it worked in cardboard. So there's a lot to be said for being brave and being experimental. This rope here keeps the bucket from twisting when it drops into the hole.
And that special linkage there that's got the red piece allows a very clever
Yes.
opening and closing of the bucket controlled by one rope.
Yes, that's what this is about. There's a discharging ring here, and anybody who knows all about Priestman, in fact, if you go to a place called Threlkeld up in the Lake District in Cumbria, this is where I got all the information and sizes from. So you have to research your obsession.
Okay, yeah, so that's the crane. How long did that take to build?
Oh God, 6 years I think.
6 years?
And probably 8,000 hours.
Wow.
A lot.
Okay, on to locomotives. Now, when I first met you, I was about 14 and you started giving me a pointer or two. You had just started building this, so what would you like to tell the viewers about this piece?
Right, this is another of my obsessions, the Isle of Man Railway, and I really love these Bear Peacock 240s that populated the Isle of Man Railway, and some of them are still there, but this one, Sutherland, was the very first one, so thus number one, and 1873, and I wanted to model it as it originally was. So this is 1873, Bear Peacock, made in Manchester, outside cylinders made in cast iron to my own patterns, and mild steel frames, wooden buffer beams, copper boiler, and it's a lovely, lovely engine, and it goes like nothing on earth because it just strides out with these great big driving wheels. These driving wheels are made from mild steel, and they're chored out of mild steel blanks.
I seem to recall you had those water jet cut.
Did I? Well, that's very good. Yes, you're right. Water jet cut. But they are mild steel,
Yeah.
and so you don't need castings and you don't need tyres. So, and we talked also about wheels and keyways and steel, and this is the type example. It's just a simple. We talked also about friction pairs, didn't we, Crispin? And here is a perfect friction pair. We've got hardened steel slide bar and then bronze slippers.
Yeah, if anyone's not familiar, Richard and I did a video on material choices, and these references Richard is making are to that video. But yeah, very nice locomotive.
So this is one of my favourites and is lovely, and you know, it's all part of the obsession. Right, so about 30 years ago, a model engineer did a series of a Great Western...
Model Engineer being the UK magazine.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Model Engineer being the UK Model Engineers magazine, and they produced a design for this type of locomotive, which is called a Great Western 1400 class, and it was horrible because what they did was to change the boiler, change the cylinders, change everything, and I wanted to build it scale, so I took the basic plans and changed them all round so that I could have scale size cylinders, scale pressures, scale everything, and then built it in this form. And this has been to Budapest, it's been all over. We've had a lot of fun with this engine. It goes like the wind, and it's nice. I mean, it looks right, and it is right, and it's got cast iron wheels, I have to say, but we've talked about cast iron wheels before, haven't we, Crispin? But never mind, it's all right. It's a good looking engine, and it's a faithful model of the real thing.
So everything we've seen so far, including this one, is the old 7 1/4 inch gauge.
Yes, it is.
And very popular choice for these slightly bigger scale locomotives. So
and of course, one of the problems with a tank engine is that you keep the water in the tanks at the side, and the water gets warm, and the water won't work on the injectors when it's warm. So I've got pumps so that I can pump even if the injectors don't work.
So last up here we have what, Richard?
So this is Old Faithful. This is 42 years old now, and amazingly I built this in an even tinier workshop 42 years ago, but this has been remarkable. It's a Kerr Stuart Wrenn design, and the Wrenn was used on earth moving projects before we had dumper trucks, and it's a very rugged design, and I got to know it when I was a volunteer at Bala Lake Railway, and I thought, what a lovely model that would make. And there was an engineer called Ken Swan who did drawings and design, and I built it faithfully to his drawings. And can you believe that 40 years has passed and it's still running? And one of the amazing things that this locomotive did, we were asked if we could do something spectacular for a children's hospice, and I said, why don't we try and run a steam engine for 24 hours? And of course all the long-faced people said, you can't do that, worst thing you can do. Well, we did it with 7 drivers, and we ran this thing for 24 hours, never stopped. We ashed out on the move, we took water on the move, we oiled on the move, and we raised £7,000 for charity for this hospice. So this engine is famous, and it's going to be running next week, and it's probably my favourite.
Very nice. So there we are, everything from the workshop to the work in progress to the 4 previously built locomotives. Thank you very much, Richard, for giving us an insight into a prolific model engineer's life. If you have any closing comments, now would be a good time to make them.
Well, for me, this has been a real pleasure. Having Crispin as somebody that I've been able to mentor has been an enormous delight, and to have seen him go from school to a successful career and making these videos is fabulous. So, you know, I don't know what will happen to all these after I've gone, but I do know that the lessons that I've been able to teach Crispin will live on, and that's wonderfully satisfying.
Well, thank you, Richard. Very kind of you to say. With reference to the locomotives, I'm sure someone out there is going to want to know what time period of your life this represents.
When I'm dead.
Because it's important to point out that this is not Richard's job. This has always been a hobby.
Yes.
Richard's had a lot of serious engineering jobs in all kinds of things, and lately, or most recently, Chief Engineer of the National Railway Museum in York. So this has always been a hobby. So go on, with everything we can see in shot here, what kind of time frame are we talking about?
I think 35 to 40 years building in the evenings and weekends when I found time. I've always loved making things, and long may that continue.
Long may that continue. Thank you, Richard, and we'll close with that. So there we are, a remarkable amount of model engineering for one person by anyone's standards. I hope you found that inspiring. I certainly did back when I was 13, and I'll close by saying thank you to Richard for your generosity in letting us all have a look around. I hope everyone found this interesting. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.